Howdy, howdy. And we're back for another one of those good old videos. So today's video, we're going to talk about your next contract. I put out a video talking about all the contracts, who you should choose and all that, but then we had the obelisk update, and I feel like some of my information in that video is no longer valid. So I'm going to continue to put out a video just before we reach our next tier of contract. So once we get to tier 3, I'm gonna have a video out before we get to tier 3. So sorry for this one being a little late. I didn't really think I was going to have to make one, but I see that I do because people are asking. So we're going to try to move this as quickly as possible. And the short answer is pick Red Alev. Pick Red Alev. That's the short answer. So now let's talk about why we should pick what hero we should pick first for our second tier of contracts. So since I already said pick Red Alev, let's talk about why we picking Red Alev. So if you didn't follow pretty much my guidelines up to this point, you probably have plenty of blue and green heroes under your belt, even damage wise, like having the green with Silica and the blue Helga. For instance, some of you might have the blue pup. Some of you might have spent a little bit and got the green Lapis. So it's like we're lacking in red damage. And even if you chose the red Lyrae, she's not a striker. Red Alev is. If you didn't pick up the red pup, then Red Alev is your girl. Now, her skills is pretty much based off of her critting for the most part. So we can go in here, you can look at her skills, attacks to select the enemy, gains an extra turn if the enemy dies, more than one can't be gained. So this is great for clearing things, being able to kill things, get an extra turn if she does kill something. That's great for being able to clear things. You'll use this for your story progression as well as the obelisk. This can be useful in PvP, so it makes her really versatile in the areas that she can be used in. Not so much for the raid, but she's still a good damage dealer in the raid. Then we have attacks all enemies, heal the user in proportionate to the crit hit damage dealt if the attack is a critical hit. So long as she crits, so she want to be at 100% or better crit rate, so she can land critical hits and then you heal yourself, giving her a bit of self-sustain. There's no skill ups into cooldown, so it's on a 4 turn, but she has slight sustain, so that's pretty cool. Then her burst is ignores defense if the attack is a critical hit. So she's going to completely ignore defense, and if you do miss the crit, you still get the 20% for having a striker set on her. Granted, you build her on a striker set, which in most cases you will. Now, where you could use her, she has double AOE, so she's going to be good for PvP. She's going to be good for story, and like I said, she's going to be great for the obelisk, our newest content. And she can be used in a raid as one of your main damage dealers if you focus her being for just high damage output. She can be used in that aspect as well. And then she's your red option, something that most of us don't have. So now let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about the blue Lumie, which a lot of people are advocating for to some degree. Which, for a while, it'd be like, yeah, blue Lumie. We probably, and most of us probably have a lot of blue heroes, so she's definitely not a good first pick for everybody that has chose so many blue heroes to build. I mean, you got blue Crom, some of us using blue Frown, you got blue Plug, blue Helga, all this blue stuff. So she really just doesn't fit the team comp when you just need to get more of other attributes. So she's definitely a great pick, not for your first, but possibly your second option, unless she's just your waifu of choice. If she's waifu of choice, then by all means do what you want. But let's look at her skills. So here, our first one is attacks to select the enemy, 80% chance to increase user speed for 1 turn. So she get herself faster with skill ups. You can get it up to 100% chance to give her that little speed buff increase. So that can be useful in all content. Then she gains a lot of extra burst gauge. So she can get a lot of burst for your team once you skill her up. So it seems like a hero that you definitely want to have fast, because heroes that can get burst gauge oftenly want to be faster than most other heroes outside of like your turn bar boosters and your buffers and such. And this is just off of her first skill. Then her second skill attacks the selected enemy's 80% chance to reduce the action gauge by 20%. Now 20% action gauge, and then you can get it up to 100% debuff chance to get this down to a 3-turn cooldown, which means that this is going to be great not only for PvP where she was been mostly used, but the obelisk, because you have as you get through into the further stages that the enemies become tankier and harder to kill. So just having someone that can reduce their action gauge by a bit can be helpful. But if you got the blue pup, then you don't necessarily need her. I mean, they can work well together, but it's not important. And but if you are using the red lyra, also once again, she could be good, especially for turn cycling teams and turn cycling comps. That's great for the story as well as PvP, and also once again the obelisk a little bit, depending on what you've chose. If you got the green Olivia in your team comp, and let's say red Lyra, and maybe blue pup, where you didn't go for blue pup, but you do want some turn cycling or somewhat. She can be useful in that aspect. Then her last skill is attacks all enemies 100% chance to reduce their action gauge by 20% chance. By 20%, 60% chance to inflict sleep for 1 turn. So this is pretty good. And the debuff chance for the sleep, I believe, goes up to 80 because the first one is already 100%. So you're guaranteed to get a 20% reduction, and it can go down to a 3 spirit cost, which this is going to be real useful for her moving forward. So yeah, this is definitely an important skill to have for all content but the raid. The raid, you're really not going to get any benefit from her. Like, she's practically useless in the raid. She's not going to benefit anything in your team outside of building for damage, but there's better options because she's a warrior anyway. And with warriors, you want them to have some kind of utility, especially for them being able to counterattack with their gear. And she doesn't give anything that benefits you outside of burst gauge, and you can get more burst gauge from a sniper than you could from her. But as far as PvP, obelisk, and story progression goes, but I mean, at some point, the only thing you could use her for in the story is farming, because most of you will be already almost complete, or 99% will have completed the story by the time she's even available and useful for you, unless you super slow rolling in your team. So mostly you'll be picking her up for PvP and possibly the obelisk. Now we had to save the best for last, the Dapper Daddy himself, Walther. Now this is like my favorite pick right here, and the only reason is because I've been waiting. It's like I've been saying for months, like even before the global hat came out, is like Walter doesn't really do much. I seen him a little bit in the PvP, and then like currently I seen him like make a real big rise in the Korean PvP meta. Like they're using him a lot, and I understand why, because he has a pretty unique kit. But I always thought when I saw his kit was he would be perfect for a tower. If we get some form of a tower in this game that works and functions like a tower would in every other game. This one is a little bit different, but it's still the same concept. Is you go through floors, and the way you get through these floors easily, or at least easier than it would be if you try to go full damage and you just don't have the damage or the sustain to be able to make it through, is to have some form of CC, and he provides it in his skill kit. So let's take a look. So first things first, on his first skill, and he's a guardian by the way, so he can use the Aegis set to reduce damage on himself, is that he can give himself a defense buff for 1 turn, and once max skill, 2 turns for that defense buff on his basic attack. His skill 2 is attack all enemies, 60% chance to provoke them for 1 turn. Now, you can get this up to a 80% chance, a little bit more damage, and down to a 3-turn cooldown, which will be really beneficial for you. And then his burst is attacks all enemies, fills all allies action gauge by 20%. 20% is not a lot when it comes to some of the heroes that can get you 30, 35%. once you skill them up. But this goes down to a 3 spirit cost, can grant you a little bit more damage, but the most important part is he's able to get yourself some extra turns when maybe you needed a little bit more than you need the damage at the time, because you'll still be able to get the damage later on. And I think important that he does have on one of his passive in extra defense, because he's a tank. He's a tank. But what really stands out is his second skill, giving you that chance to provoke. Provoke is really strong in PvP, but not only PvP, it's going to be strong for the obelisk. If you have any types of CC where in terms of provoking, stunning, and turn bar reduction, it's going to be beneficial going into the obelisk, because once you get into those harder stages, it's going to be hard to clear without someone dying. So to mitigate as much damage as possible, having a hero that can apply a provoke, especially an AoE provoke, will be beneficial. And this is why I think he's a stellar option to choose. Because if you're planning on pushing for Obelisk, you should pick him up now. He's completely useless in a raid because his skills does really nothing. He's definitely great in PvP for the same reasons, that if you have him fast and tanky, he can provoke before the enemy moves and can push your team during the later parts of the fight if necessary. So you can go for a faster, more controlled comp than trying to outdamage the enemy and be a little bit too slow and get kind of cut in between type of ordeal for the PvP rather. So I would say if you're not going right into building for the obelisk, which most of us really shouldn't be, because it's really not content for the early mid global players, and really the later players not so much either. Mostly people that have willed and like really got things progressed and built up, yeah, they will be a little bit better suited for picking him up first or something. But I would still say go for the red Alev first, just to fill out what you're missing. You can opt to go for blue Lumie, because if you go for blue Lumie and go for the green Walther, you got a lot of control and a lot of sustain between the two of them that can be added extra, and they can be used in the same places in the game and be effective in the game together. And then if you just go with the Alev and Walther, you can't miss there. So once again, for my final thoughts, I think Lumie or Walther would be a good second option, and Alev being the first option. And the only reason that you would choose Walther first will be if you're pushing for either your PvP or Obelisk. And the same goes for Lumie if you were to be pushing for PvP or Obelisk. But other than that, Alev would be the option, and I've repeated myself enough times already. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and if you did, make sure you smash that like button. If you didn't, and you tired of me repeating myself over, well, there's a button for you guys as well. Link to the Discord where we can talk more about some of the nuances of Lord of Heroes will be in the description box below, as well as the pin comment below. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here. Turn those post notifications on so you can be the first to see my content when it goes live. And this is your host, GamerDude2088, and I will see you guys next time. And man, when you spend $39.99 to get the visor upgrade, it looks smooth. It looks clean, don't it? Look how clean it looks. Look at my quality. Y'all about to get more videos like this. Quality on fleek.